This episode is brought to you by Patriot Gold Group. Protect your retirement assets and protect your future. Patriot Gold has been the top-rated gold IRA dealer for 7 years in a row. Think about that. 7 years in a row, they've been the top-rated gold IRA dealer. Go to patriotgoldgroup.com or call 1-888-621-3856 for a free investor guide. It's Tuesday, 16 July. Welcome to the President's Daily Brief. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage. Let's get briefed. In today's Spotlight, we dive into the unfolding investigation of the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. As more information emerges about what led up to the incident, the Secret Service and its director, Kimberly Cheatle, are facing heightened scrutiny. Later in the show, we'll have the latest from the war in Gaza, with news that the IDF has struck Syrian Army facilities as tensions continue to build also in the nation's north with Hezbollah. Plus, we'll turn our attention to South America, where the upcoming elections in Venezuela could potentially unseat a longtime antagonist of the United States. And finally, in today's Back of the Brief, Donald Trump announced his VP pick yesterday at the Republican National Convention. We'll look at where he stands on international and national security issues. But first, today's PDB Spotlight. We'll kick things off today with a look at the U.S. Secret Service, and including a focus on the current director, Kimberly Cheatle. In the aftermath of the assassination attempt on President Trump at a rally in Pennsylvania on Saturday, the Secret Service has obviously come under intense scrutiny, with many questioning everything from the security procedures on the ground and apparent breakdowns at the rally to whether Secret Service leadership provided former President Trump's detail with the adequate resources necessary to secure the event. That's according to a CNN report. As we discussed yesterday, the shooter, 20-year-old Thomas Crooks, was able to climb a rooftop with a clear line of sight to former President Trump, despite attendees warning authorities about a suspicious man in the crowd, and then warning authorities about a suspicious man on the roof, and then warning authorities about a suspicious man on the roof with a gun. Now, those should all be considered clues. That rooftop was reportedly identified as a major security vulnerability days before the rally, but the Secret Service did not post any personnel on the rooftop in question, which was only about 148 yards from the stage. While the Secret Service has said that the building and rooftop used by the shooter was under the jurisdiction of local law enforcement, local officials have said Secret Service was ultimately responsible for security around the venue. Former Secret Service agents have speculated that Trump's team was stretched thin and had to rely too much on local law enforcement. In an Oval Office address on Sunday evening, President Biden said he had ordered Secret Service Director Cheatle to organize an independent review of the rally and to reassess security measures for this week's Republican National Convention. Cheatle said the agency will fully participate in the independent review and pledge to cooperate with Congress on any oversight action. Many, frankly, are unimpressed with her response to the shooting, however, and calls for her resignation have begun to mount. Investigators are sure to pick apart every detail of Secret Service protocol at the rally, including whether procedures were followed regarding security sweeps of the buildings ahead of Trump's speech. Again, they will also be looking to see if the Secret Service had provided Trump's team with enough resources to protect the former president. We should note, the Secret Service has denied allegations that they refused a request from Trump's team to increase security at the rally. But the Washington Post reported that an agent on the detail told a colleague that a lack of resources directly led to the security blunders. Now, imagining that a lack of resources is a problem is not a stretch to believe, given that independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose father and uncle were, of course, both assassinated, has long been denied Secret Service protection by the Biden administration. Following the assassination attempt on Trump, though, the administration relented and announced RFK Jr. would be given a Secret Service detail. I mean, frankly, how was that a tough decision for the administration? Unless, of course, they simply didn't want to legitimize Kennedy's campaign by giving him Secret Service protection. Regardless, let's take a look quickly at who's leading the Secret Service. Who is Kimberly Cheatle? Appointed to lead the Secret Service by President Biden in 2022, Cheatle became the second woman in history to head the agency. She's a 27-year veteran of the Secret Service, having previously served on Biden's Secret Service detail when he was vice president. Before being named head of the agency, Cheatle was working as the senior director of global security at PepsiCo, and that's according to Axios. Cheatle immediately stirred controversy when she took over at the Secret Service, forcefully championing diversity and equity initiatives within the agency. She committed to having at least 30% of the Secret Service made up of female agents by the year 2030. For an agency responsible for protecting lives, now I don't know, how about you champion picking the best candidates rather than sucking up to DEI grifters? That's just simply a thought on my part. To entice more females, she even floated the idea of hiring the YouTube influencer Michelle Kerr to train with agents. Apparently, I'm not making that up. Bringing in YouTube influencers to entice women to join the Secret Service. Now, not to be, indelicate, but these issues are worth discussing given the criticism leveled at the perceived slow response by some female agents on Trump's detail on Saturday. These criticisms also pointed out the height and weight differential between Trump and these agents, with many questioning whether they could adequately shield the 6'3" former president. A statement from Meghan McCain is indicative of the widespread criticism that Cheatle is facing for her prioritization of DEI policies at the agency. McCain said, quote, "This is why the notion that men and women are the same is just absurd. You need to be taller than the candidate to protect them with your body. Why do they have these short women, one who can't holster a gun, apparently, guarding Trump? This is embarrassing and dangerous," she said, end quote. While we will have to wait to learn more about Saturday's security failures, members of Congress are taking matters into their own hands. A bipartisan group of lawmakers is preparing to introduce a bill to enhance Secret Service protections for President Biden, former President Trump, and now RFK Jr., as our fractured nation barrels towards November. Okay, before moving on, just a quick reminder. If you're enjoying the show and you want to listen without commercial interruptions, sign up for a premium membership at pdbpremium.com. Along with an ad-free experience, you'll receive our weekly newsletter, the PDB Intelligence Checklist, and have access to our monthly Ask Me Anything sessions. And once a week, I'll stop by your home and mix up a batch of martinis. Again, you can check that out at pdbpremium.com. All right, coming up next, we'll bring you the latest from the war in Gaza, including news of the IDF striking Syrian Army facilities. And then we'll turn to South America, where longtime antagonist of the United States, Nicolas Maduro, is in danger of losing the upcoming election later this month, assuming, of course, he allows a fair election. And by that, I mean there won't be a fair election. We'll have those stories when we come back. Welcome back to the PDB. I want to shift our focus to the Middle East, where Israel is increasing the pressure on Hamas terrorists amid ongoing ceasefire negotiations. Israel executed several strikes along the Gaza Strip on Monday, hitting a UN-run school building in central Gaza being used as a base of operations by Hamas militants. In the south, IDF troops neutralized a cell attempting to ambush Israeli soldiers in Rafah, while they eliminated several Hamas fighters in smaller skirmishes in northern Gaza. IDF troops also reportedly took out a cell of Hamas forces in Gaza City who were trying to lay an improvised explosive device on a road used by the IDF, and that's according to Reuters. Analysts say that the scattered activity seems to indicate that Israel is winding down operations in parts of northern Gaza as they shift to a more targeted strategy when it comes to dealing with Hamas's reconstituted battalions. Such a strategy would allow the Israeli military to operate a little more fluidly and would target threats where they emerge, and that's according to a report from the Jerusalem Post. Amid the flurry of activity in Gaza, Israel also continues to keep resources focused on Iran's network of proxies, particularly Hezbollah in Lebanon and their allies in Syria. The IDF revealed Monday that their forces had carried out airstrikes against Syrian military facilities linked to drone attacks on Israel. It came after an Israeli airstrike in Syria last week against Hezbollah militants who were attempting to use Syrian Army sites to launch surprise attacks on Israel. An Israeli airstrike in Lebanon on Monday also killed 2 Hezbollah fighters as the conflict along Israel's northern border continues to intensify. Now, whether fighting with Hezbollah explodes into a wider war, as many fear, well, that seems to hinge on the outcome of the latest ceasefire negotiations with Hamas, which have shown promise. As we reported Monday, those negotiations remain ongoing even after a deadly Israeli airstrike in Gaza on Saturday that is thought to have killed Mohammed Deif, the elusive military leader of Hamas. Hamas officials have accused Israel of attempting to disrupt the ceasefire negotiation with the strike, but said they would remain at the table, at least for now. While there are still reportedly gaps between the parties, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken struck an optimistic note on Monday, saying, quote, "There are a few remaining sticking points, and we're working to try and resolve those. We're committed," he said, "to trying to do that." End quote. All right, shifting attention to South America, where for the first time since his election in 2013, President Nicolas Maduro's government in Venezuela, well, it appears genuinely threatened. A recent survey shows that 2/3 of Venezuelans hope for political change in the 28 July presidential election. If that polling deficit holds, stealing this election, well, it won't be as easy for Maduro as it has been in previous years. The October 2023 Barbados Agreement, in which Maduro committed to electoral guarantees, has played a crucial role in driving this potential tipping point. The agreement was part of a process of sanctions relief coordinated by the Biden administration and international partners, and it marked a significant step towards the goal of free elections. Okay, let's not overegg the pudding. A significant step toward free elections, at least theoretically. After signing the agreement, the U.S. announced an easing of sanctions on Venezuela's oil and gas sector, contingent on Maduro's adherence to holding fair elections. Of course, the Venezuelan government has a history of undermining such agreements, and Maduro is making concerted efforts to manipulate the election in his favor. Despite the initial optimism, Maduro's government quickly violated the spirit of the Barbados Agreement. In January 2024, the pro-government Supreme Court upheld the disqualification of opposition candidate Maria Corina Machado. Additionally, Maduro's government designed a ballot favoring the president, in which he appears as a candidate 13 times, and they moved polling sites to pro-government locations. So, you ask yourself, and it's a good question to ask yourself, who is the man behind the growing threat to Maduro? Well, he's a little-known retired diplomat named Edmundo González Urrutia. He is leading Maduro by 20 to 30 points in recent polls, despite never having sought elected office, and until recently, well, being virtually unknown to voters. The only reason he's running is that he agreed to be the stand-in presidential candidate for the Venezuelan opposition following Machado's forced disqualification. Despite the low profile, González has decades of experience in international diplomacy, having served as Venezuela's ambassador to both Algeria and Argentina. According to statements made on the campaign trail, he aims to govern inclusively, addressing the needs of all citizens, including supporters of his rival. Sensing the growing threat of González's challenge, Maduro has stepped up verbal attacks on the low-key career diplomat. During a recent rally, Maduro described his opponent as, quote, "a decrepit old man who wants to take power in Venezuela." González has avoided taking the bait, responding, quote, we are going to build a country where the president doesn't insult people. Wait, what kind of political nonsense is that? Despite the opposition's enthusiasm, much could change before the vote, which many view as Venezuela's last chance to rescue its democracy and economy from one of the most severe peacetime depressions in decades. Concerns linger that Maduro, who blames U.S. sanctions for the economic collapse, might undermine Gonzalez's candidacy or create a security crisis to justify suspending the vote. Even if the election happens and the opposition wins, well, many observers are skeptical that Maduro will accept the result and relinquish power, fearing imprisonment or political oblivion. All right, coming up, Donald Trump has chosen Ohio Senator JD Vance as his running mate. We'll explore where the senator stands on the issues in today's Back of the Brief. I'll be right back. In today's Back of the Brief, well, the pick is in. And if you had JD Vance on your bingo card, well, congratulations. Former President Donald Trump has named the Ohio senator as his running mate for the upcoming presidential election. The announcement came during the Republican National Convention on Monday in Milwaukee, with Trump keeping the world guessing until the last possible moment. And here's a fun fact. The last time Republicans waited this long for a VP candidate was when George H.W. Bush chose Dan Quayle as his running mate, and that was back in 1988. Ooh, ancient history. Vance is a relatively new figure in politics, first gaining national attention with his best-selling memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, in 2016. The same year, by the way, that Trump was elected president. Since becoming a senator in the state of Ohio in 2022, Vance has been a staunch supporter of Trump's policies, particularly in areas of foreign policy, immigration, and trade. The announcement was made on Truth Social just as delegates were rubber-stamping Trump's nomination as the Republican presidential candidate. Trump praised Vance's military service, his successful career in technology and finance, and his dedication to American workers and farmers in crucial battleground states like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. House Speaker Mike Johnson expressed strong support for the choice, emphasizing Vance's innovative ideas and ability to connect with younger voters. Johnson stated, quote, "It is time to unite our nation, and we are eager to grow our House majority and get to work with this ticket to restore America's greatness once again," end quote. Now, in the Senate, Vance aligned closely with the former president. On topics like Ukraine, Vance emerged as one of the most prominent critics of U.S. support, where he led an unsuccessful effort to block a $60 billion military aid package for Ukraine. In an opinion piece for the New York Times, Vance criticized President Biden's approach, saying, quote, "Mr. Biden has failed to articulate even basic facts about what Ukraine needs and how this aid will change the reality on the ground," end quote. Vance's Senate campaign emphasized strict border control and a merit-based immigration system, with the construction of the border wall a priority. He staunchly opposes any form of amnesty for undocumented immigrants, aligning with the broader Republican agenda aimed at tightening immigration laws. Regarding tariffs, Vance supports Trump's proposal of a 10% across-the-board tariff on imported goods, framing it as a moral stance against exploitative labor practices in China. He believes that these tariffs will incentivize domestic production, particularly in the Rust Belt. And that, my friends, is the President's Daily Brief for Tuesday, 16 July. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. Now, to listen to the show ad-free, become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. It's very, very simple. And remember, the PDB is available on all podcast platforms, as well as our YouTube channel at President's Daily Brief. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back later today with the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool.